Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. Today's course topic is travel, relocation, and workplace safety. How to be safe when you're traveling, relocating, or joining a new workplace. Let's discuss who would benefit from this course. This course is intended to help travelers, mobility professionals, and those relocating. For travelers, we're including everyone that may be traveling, whether it be for business, leisure, adventure, students for a study abroad, or more. Now, for what we will learn. Since the topic of travel, relocation, and workplace safety is so general, we have a lot of information to get through. We have broken this out into several lessons. Lesson 1 being an introduction to safety. Lesson 2, avoiding risk. Lesson 3, denying access to evildoers. Lesson 4, defending yourself and others. Lesson 5, environmental dangers. And Lesson 6, information for leaders. This will be for mobility professionals and managers with direct reports. At the end of this course, we have a course project to make a safety plan, and we'll go through instructions of how to do so. I will be your instructor today. My name is Andrew Bruzy. I'm the founder and CEO of Vendium Global. I'm an author in the mobility and travel space. I have over 10 years of experience in the mobility field, helping people travel to the farthest reaches of the world. I'm also a former expat and traveler, so I'll be sharing a number of stories that I have experienced myself during this session. Now, what is Vendium Global? Vendium Global is an HR and global mobility consultancy firm headquartered in Northwest Arkansas. We help medium to large corporations in moving their talent worldwide. This includes business travel and relocation travel. As far as how do we help them, we incorporate technology, policy, procedure, and education to help them move talent with ease and, of course, for the topic of today's session, safely. Let's get started with Lesson 1, Introduction to Safety. I'd like to begin with a situation that we are likely all familiar with. The lights start flashing, the alarm is going, and we all know what this is. It's a fire drill. You stand up from your desk and you head out in an orderly, single file line. Now, a lot of you are probably smiling right now because you know this is not true. We stand up, we look to what our colleagues are doing, and we decide of whether or not we will head out and how quickly. We may say something such as, "Is this real?" This is because of what we mentioned on this slide of social proof. Humans are social creatures, and we look to others of how to react during an emergency situation. Now, as we continue through this course, we'll reference back to this and use it as an example to make sure that you are not the one that's standing at your desk just looking around. So, what are we looking to accomplish? Well, when a problem occurs, that is not the time to plan. This is because our body has physiological responses to an emergency. We react to things when an emergency occurs rather than being proactive. The proactive part that we can all take part in is the training here today and making sure that we put together a plan, making sure that we think about these things before they may occur and hope that they never do. And this is because of our second point. Your brain is your first protection. Being able to outthink any problem that may arise will be an immediate value add in any interaction that you may be in. During today's session, we'll go through how to learn how to research and prepare so then we can better prepare for any situations that we may face. When discussing the physiological responses that we all have to emergency situations, it would be impossible to not mention the fight, flight, and freeze reactions. So we will freeze in the event of something happening that we don't know how to respond to. We're sitting there trying to assess what others are doing, and again, that social proof, and try to figure out what we should do in that situation, which makes planning all the more important. The impact of adrenaline is very intense. People may lose senses, they may lose hearing. They'll get things like tunnel vision, where they won't see anything around them. This will distract you from the problem at hand and also diminish your fine motor skills, often leading back to the freezing aspect of things. So, most professional security trainers will instruct people to follow the ADD or run, hide, fight. Now, ADD stands for avoid, deny, defend, and this is what we'll be going through today. Proper reactions to your fight, flight, and freeze response that you're experiencing. When discussing safety planning, we need to take into account where we are and what kind of dangers we may face. What are the challenges? What is the weather like? What is the location? What are the normal threats that we might face? This could be anything from environmental to physical. Now, the general pieces of making a safety plan is based around if X occurs. So if something occurs, then essentially what do we do? Where would we go in the event of this emergency? What do we do when we get there? What do we need to either place there beforehand or take with us? And then what do we do after the emergency is over? Now, that last piece is often overlooked, but just as important as the initial parts. If you think about, should there be a power outage? Does your family know where to meet in the home? Will they know where a flashlight is? So again, a good example of what did you place there and what will you need in the event of a foreseeable emergency. If your cell phone did not work, do your family members know where to meet? Does your team know where to meet? Is there a priority of the such? These are things that we'll be discussing in the slides to come. Now to begin, Lesson 2, Avoiding Risk. Situational awareness is a very complex topic, and we could have a multi-day session just discussing this one point alone. To discuss how it would apply to us that are relocating, traveling, and settling into a new workplace, there are some general things to think about. The first is, what are your risks? When you're walking down the street in a metropolitan area, your risks are much different than if you're walking through the jungle. If you're walking down a hallway in your workplace, your risks are much different than if you're walking on the street of a war-torn nation. These are all important to note because they depend on what you're facing. So you want to be able to assess what your risks are, how likely you are to face them, and then what to do should they occur. And this is where we go back to the safety planning. What are the behaviors of others, and what are your behaviors? What will make you stand out, and what make others stand out that may be a risk to you? Even if we're talking about, again, a jungle, then what would be the behaviors of an animal that may cause you to keep your distance? Knowing your exits and knowing how to get away is one of the most important things that you can have. Even if you're in a restaurant, you want to see, where's the kitchen? Because typically there's an exit through the kitchen. Where's the exit through the front? Where are the exits in your workplace? What about in your hotel? These are important things to know because should something happen, and it could be anything from an active shooter to a fire taking place to a natural disaster, you want to know how to get you and your loved ones out of harm's way. Now, lastly, weapons. This is something for you to take note of for both the aggressors in a situation and for yourself. Should you have to defend yourself, what could you use as a weapon? Again, are you in a restaurant and you have access to a knife or something heavy? Can you throw something that will distract a potential attacker? What about, is there a weapon that is easily accessible by an attacker that could then be used on you? These are things to be looking out for in any of your normal day-to-day interactions. Not, of course, to be paranoid, but just to be situationally aware. Should something happen, you're always prepared. Avoiding danger is often the best way to confront it. This is the reason why in the avoid, deny, defend, or the run, hide, fight scenarios, they put run and avoid first. This is because distance is your friend. If you are walking down a street and something just doesn't feel right, you should trust your gut instinct. Your body is telling you that for a reason. If something makes you feel uncomfortable, you should avoid it. We have learned through evolution to be able to react to situations that are not in our interest. When you think about what you are trusting, and notice that we say what and not who. Are you trusting a scenario of a tour guide that may seem a little bit sketchy, that you ended up getting a very good deal on, but they don't seem that trustworthy? Are you trusting a bridge that you're crossing that seems very rickety? Are you trusting a door that may not be able to lock? These are important things to note of whatever scenario that you may be in. Who and what you are trusting is very important because keeping your distance from any potential risks may save your life. And think about where your transitional spaces are. A transitional space will be when you're walking from your car into your home, potentially walking into a store. These are also known as fatal funnels in security terms. This is because you will be going into a very narrow area, and should a person that means you harm want to attack, this is where it will happen. A good example of how to win in any fight, any martial artist will let you know of this, and this is a secret which we will share with you today, is run. We all want to have a great view of ourselves of how we would react should a terrible situation occur. But if you can escape, that is a surefire way to make sure that you will be there tomorrow. Making simple preparations in your life will not only make it safer, but also more comfortable. Think about when you're traveling or going between meetings. Having some extra food and water will absolutely make you feel more comfortable. It will make you safer should you need those provisions. And when we discuss shelter here, we're referring to your clothing. Your clothing is the first shelter that you have against the elements, your first shelter that you have against insects. Dress appropriately for where you are and bring extra layers. This will allow you to have some flexibility should you need it, and also ensure that you do not need to return home should the elements change. Next is training and research. Training to make sure that you're prepared for the situations that you'll be entering in throughout the day will make it much more comfortable and again safer. Think about first aid. If you have a simple cut that occurs, do you know what to do? What about the people that are with you? Do you know any medical ailments that they may have and how to help them should they need it? And language and cross cultural trainings are other examples of how you can interact better with the people that are around you. Researching the area will let you know what you need to prepare for and the training that you should seek before you go. Keeping copies of important documents is essential to making sure that you are secure wherever you are. Keeping a copy of your passport on you while traveling allows you to leave the vicinity of the hotel and still have identification on you. Bring your passport with you when you're traveling between hotels because you'll need the original document. But always think about, if I were to be robbed or if I were to lose a bag, then what would I have on me to be able to show the authorities in order to get out of trouble? Lastly, is financial. Alert your banks and credit cards that you'll be traveling. Even if you're traveling within the same country, your bank may impose a fraud alert on your account and shut down your card when you need it most. Having cash on you will give you a lot of flexibility should any situation pop up. You always want to have extra cash and make sure to split it in between locations. Always be thinking about, if I were to be robbed today, or again, if I were to lose a bag, what would I do? A great example of this is a time that I was traveling in a hotel that was in a very remote location. I stayed there for about a week, and when I went to check out, the owner of the hotel said that they only accepted cash in the local currency. I did not have that much cash on me, and they wouldn't accept any app payments or credit cards. This meant that I had to drive about an hour away with the owner of the hotel to go to local ATM in an area that was going through some political unrest. This could have been very dangerous, and it certainly was uncomfortable standing at an ATM in the open, taking out a large amount of cash. If I had been properly prepared and had the cash on hand, this never would have occurred. When traveling to or through a new location, looking the part is very important. Security trainers will often reference being the gray person as a concept. Now, what this means is being able to blend in with your environment. Look like the locals. Try to blend in so if there is a crime of opportunity, they will not notice you out of the crowd. Think about how you're dressed. Are you wearing anything that makes you stand out as not being a local? Are you wearing anything that is especially expensive that may make you a robbery risk or potentially even a kidnap risk? How about what you look like? Are you wearing makeup or potentially piercings or tattoos that would point you out as not being a local? These things are very easy to cover up or change in order to look more like you belong in that area. Then what do you have with you? A major tell is if you have a large and expensive camera. Large and expensive cameras often happen to be large and expensive targets. They're easy to grab and easy to run away with if someone so chooses. They identify you as a tourist and likely not knowing the area very well. Jewelry is another aspect. If you're traveling to a new location, it's often best to make sure that you keep any expensive jewelry at home. Are you carrying a large water bottle in your hand? Now, we already talked about the importance of carrying extra food and water with you, but a large water bottle in your hand may signify that you are a tourist, just exploring the area and looking around. Last, as far as an advice of how to interact in these new spaces, always be in a hurry and look a little bit angry. Now, as funny as this sounds, it shows that you are walking with a purpose, so you likely know the area. In being a little bit grumpy, it shows that you're not a person to be approached. Normal crimes happen as crimes of opportunity, and they are not going to just happen upon someone that looks like they would confront back. Having knowledge of the local area is essential to adapting well. Knowing what the social norms are ensures that you do not accidentally offend someone and create an aggressive situation where you never intended one. Also, know the dangerous areas. By avoiding the dangerous areas, you can avoid most of the problems. Generally speaking, there are two times when someone has issues while traveling or relocating. It's either when they don't know or if they're looking for trouble. The best bet is to avoid both of those. Knowing some of the local language will help you do this. Learn to ask for directions, ask for advice, ask how to say something else so you can know another phrase after this. Ordering in restaurants and being able to get around are essential to making sure that you have both a safe and comfortable trip. Last is establish some local contacts. Your local contacts will give you information that the guidebooks often never can. They'll tell you where to go for the best restaurants, where to go for the best entertainment, and where to avoid, which is most important when we're discussing safety. Let's begin Lesson 3, Denying Access to Evildoers. When we enter our place of work, security is often one of the last things on our mind. We're thinking about our calendar, project deadline, a meeting that we have in the afternoon. Even still, safety should be a priority here as well. Think about where safe rooms are. In the event of an active shooter situation, where is there a room where you could barricade yourself? This room would be lockable and have hard walls. What about in the event of a severe storm? In the event of a severe storm, a solid shelter area would be a structurally secure point in the building, think elevator shaft or stairwell, with no exterior windows. You do not want there to be exterior windows because of the potential of flying glass. Lastly, think of your evacuation points. Where would you go in the event of a fire? When you go to a meeting, look down the hallway in either direction. Think of multiple evacuation points. This will allow you to be able to quickly adjust should the need arise and should an emergency occur. For many of us, our home is our castle. It's our sanctuary that we return to at the end of every day. It's where our loved ones rest. Because of this, we have all the more reason to secure it. Think of your points of entry. Your door locks and door frame are easy areas to upgrade in order to increase the security of your home. Think about the monitoring of your home. Do you have a security system? Even if you do not want to invest in a full security system, there are many solutions available that you can purchase both in-store and online. These include things such as camera systems, where you can monitor 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in high-definition video and audio. Many of these will have motion sensor and alarm functions. This way, if someone does enter your home uninvited, then you'll have that high-definition video to go to the authorities with. Think about your evacuation routes. This is especially important if you live in an apartment building. If there is a fire in the apartment next to you, do you know where to go? Do you have multiple exits to your apartment? Can you exit through a window? And would you know how to do so safely? What about in a standalone home? Do your family members know where to go? What if there was a fire in your home and they had to leave the house? Does everyone have a standard meeting point? Lastly, where are your safe rooms? In the event of a storm or intruder, where can you go that will be an internal room that is lockable and secure? This is a place where you could go and barricade yourself in should the need arise. While staying in a hotel, it can be very easy to think of security as someone else's concern. You see the security guards out front, and you see the full staff. But this is not the time to become complacent. If you are putting your valuables away in the hotel, then use the in-room safe. This will secure it from housekeeping staff and anyone that may enter your room that's unauthorized. If there is no hotel room safe, then use the one at the front desk. If you still keep items of value in your room, a technique that I use is to use a decoy wallet. This will be a wallet that I no longer use with either a canceled credit card or a fake one. I'll also keep a few bills of low denomination of local currency in there. This will provide an easy target for any opportunists that come in looking to steal something quickly. Their goal is often to grab whatever is valuable quickly and head out. If I have other valuable items in my suitcases, this will mean that they left with the item I was okay with them taking, while my other valuables are safe and secure. Next is research the area and read reviews. When reading reviews and researching the area, see what people are saying recently. What are people of your culture saying? This is especially important because people of different cultures may have different experiences. The timing is important for more recent reviews because you want to know what's happened lately. Is there political unrest in the area? Is there something that happened that other people may not have experienced? Next is book a room for two. This is especially important for female travelers traveling solo. If you're traveling by yourself, booking a room for two gives the appearance of more people with you. More people equals a harder target. Finally, think of your entry and exit points of the hotel. These are going to be your points of evacuation and also points of potential risk. Think of the door to your room. Whenever in your room, lock the internal locks. This will prevent anyone from gaining unauthorized access if they have a master key. Your exit points are also important because this will be the point of evacuation should some emergency arise. This may be a fire, storm, or other emergency causing you to leave the hotel in a hurry. Throughout our daily lives, our vehicle is often one of the most dangerous places that we'll be in all day. This is not only due to traffic accidents, but also due to crimes of opportunity. Because of this, keep your valuables hidden. Keep them hidden even while you're driving. You will want to do this because think of a busy metro area. When you're stuck in traffic downtown, there may be people walking in between cars. If a would-be thief sees a valuable item such as a purse, laptop, expensive watch, something like that, they may reach in and try to grab it. With enough motivation, they may even break your window. To avoid this, it's best to keep any valuable items out of sight, especially when you park the car. After you park the car, move any expensive items into the trunk. This is the most secured area of the vehicle and will be the least likely to have items stolen from. Next is know and obey the traffic laws. This will keep you out of trouble with the local authorities and hopefully keep you out of trouble with unintentionally offending others. When you're driving through traffic and if you make a mistake, it could potentially trigger a road rage incident, which leads us to our third point. Do not show road rage. Even if someone does something that you view as offensive and it makes you angry, this is not the time to lecture them or get even. Bringing up a conflict will only put yourself at risk. Next is lock doors and windows. As we mentioned, crime of opportunity is a real challenge. By locking doors and windows, it will create an additional barrier in between you and any would-be attacker or car thief. Lastly, do a vehicle safety check. This is especially important when renting a car in another country. You'll want to make sure that all of the lights work, all of the locks work, and that you take pictures of any damage there at the rental location. Something to look out for when leaving a rental lot is look out for people that are loitering. A common tactic of would-be car thieves or robbers is to wait outside of a rental lot, and as people pull out, they'll put a small hole in your tire. They'll follow you down the road and offer you assistance. When they provide assistance, they'll be more than happy to charge you a very large amount for a tow back to the rental lot. By maintaining your situational awareness, you'll avoid this and other challenges while relocating or traveling. So we've discussed how to be safe in the workplace, home, and vehicle. Now, what about your person? While interacting in the world without those barriers in between you, it's important to hide any valuables. This can apply within your country or when traveling abroad. If you are walking around with, let's say, a very expensive purse or very expensive watch, these can be easy targets for would-be thieves. Pickpockets are one of the most common petty crime risks in major cities. Keep valuables hidden, and if you have a backpack, in some cases it's important to wear it on your front to make sure that people cannot unzip it from behind. Watching your body language and the body language of others will give you a lot of information of what intentions are. Your body language, let's say if you're walking around looking at buildings and seeming that you're just enjoying the day, this will show that you are a tourist and potential target. Walk with purpose, and you will give the impression that you know exactly where you're going and that you're very comfortable in the area that you're in. Next is looking at the body language of others. If someone is making you feel uncomfortable, there's probably a reason for it. Keep your distance and try to stay within crowds and near members of authority. Next is have giveaway items. Now, no one likes losing anything of value, but a technique that I use while traveling is to keep my money and valuables in different locations on my person. This could be a money belt or split between pockets. This means that should something happen, such as a robbery, I'm able to give some money away and not lose the rest of it. This also means that if I'm purchasing something, I'm not taking out the full amount of currency that I have on my person. That could be a very enticing display for someone that wants your money. And when avoiding crimes of opportunity, think about vulnerable times and locations. If you're going out drinking at night or in any place that's not well lit, these are absolutely high-risk environments. Speak with locals about the places to avoid and the places to go. When you know where the vulnerable times are and the locations, then you'll know which places to go to not get yourself into trouble. Let's begin. Lesson 4. Defending yourself and others. When assessing how to defend yourself and others, it's important to know what kind of risk you are facing. For this, there are 3 categories. The first category is unavoidable harm. This is when you are in imminent danger from a person or animal. Next is robbery. This is going to be a situation of property crime, where someone just wants your items and they'll leave you alone after. The third is when you're not sure of what is going on. It could be a person that may be mentally ill approaching you, or something that you may be misinterpreting because you don't speak the language. We'll go into all 3. The risk of unavoidable harm is the most aggressive of the 3 categories. In this scenario, you do not want to fight fair. Something like this would include an active shooter situation, where you want to use numbers and strategy on your side. If there is a would-be attacker in your place of work, for instance, and you're barricaded in a room and they're going to be coming through the door, make sure to plan with your fellow coworkers of what to do if and when they get in. Again, this is a time to fight back aggressively. Your life may actually depend on it. Once the threat is over, though, stop. It's important to stop the threat and not use this time to impart your own justice. Let the authorities arrest the person. This is not only for moral reasons, but also for legal ones, because should you continue after the threat is over, you could be in legal trouble yourself. The next category is robbery. This includes property crimes and theft. If someone comes up to you demanding your wallet or your watch, something valuable that you have on your person, the easiest way is to just comply. This is because you can get new items, but you cannot get a new you. Hand everything over and be compliant. This is where it comes into play of having giveaway items. If you hand over what's in your pocket and it seems like everything that you have, then the robber will typically leave you alone. Now, if you do get to a point where you hand over everything that you have and they still aren't leaving you alone, this is where you may be having to move back to stage 1 of getting aggressive. If they start to come at you aggressively, and it could be a kidnapping situation or attack, this is where you fight back aggressively, and once again, do not fight fair. As we mentioned, you can get new items, but you can't get a new you, so do not risk death or kidnapping due to not defending yourself. The third category is when you're dealing with someone who may be crazy or if you're unsure of what the situation may be. The best thing to do here is to put some distance in between you and the potential attacker. Seek out others and authority figures, police. At the very least, this will put others around you should it escalate. Now, if it does escalate, we go back to the first point of defending yourself aggressively. To share a story of a scenario like this, I was traveling through Central America, and there was a gentleman that came up to me who appeared to be homeless. He was asking me for money, and he would not take no for an answer. I was trying to back away and put some distance in between us. As I would back away, he would inch closer. To make matters worse, I had my girlfriend with me, and she was holding on to my right arm, so as he grew closer, she grew closer to me as well. I continued to back up until my back hit the wall, and my concern at this point was that he was very close to me and could easily pull a concealed knife on me and no one would know what was happening. So at this point, I had to push him back with a shove just to create a gap so we could walk around him. We then walked away to make sure that we put some distance in between us and he left us alone. Now, this was not a scenario where I should have fought back aggressively because he just happened to be mentally ill and asking for some cash. He may have been trying to intimidate, but in either scenario, my life was not at risk. So this was a good opportunity to simply nudge him out of the way and continue on about my day without being aggressive. So you just were the victim of a crime. What do you do now? There's two different scenarios which I'll use as examples. Scenario 1 will be that you just were a victim of a robbery, a property crime. Something happened to you as an individual. This is where you want to notify authorities. The best bet is to get to a safe location. If you're traveling, go back to your hotel and let them help you report it. If you just were in a part of an active shooter situation, this is a bit different in scenario 2 because this is where you want to notify authorities if you can, and if not, and they are there, just comply with all commands. At that point, they're assessing who the risk is, and for all they know, you may be the danger. So it's best to listen to their verbal commands and comply with everything they're saying. They're trying to figure out who the good people are and who the bad might be. But in any scenario, immediately after calling the police to notify them that a crime had taken place, contact an attorney. This is to both protect you and ensure that you deliver the proper information to the authorities and have everything in a concise manner when they arrive. While traveling abroad, the attorney can be your ally to ensure that you do not end up in trouble if you just were the victim and may share some information that the police officer views as you being the criminal. Now lastly, practice your emotional and spiritual fitness. Regardless of which religion denomination you may follow, or if you even follow one at all, it's important to be at peace and connected with your loved ones and family. Should something tragic occur, you will not want that day to be one that you are thinking about the things that you should have said to the ones that you love. Let's begin Lesson 5, Environmental Dangers. Natural disasters and extreme weather are things that we often don't think about when relocating to or visiting a new area. Volcanoes, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, and even earthquakes are all very real risks in certain parts of the world. We should take them all into account in our research process when we're trying to figure out what risks there may be in the area that we're traveling to or relocating to. For this, I have two examples. The first being a time that I visited Costa Rica. I went to a volcano and I thought that it was very exciting to see all of the evacuation routes posted. I even was joking with a friend that I was traveling with that I could surely outrun her should the volcano erupt. Now, fortunately, the volcano did not erupt. However, 2 weeks later it did. This shows the very real risk that that tourist location had and how we were just being complacent and joking about it just a couple weeks prior. The second is a business trip that I took where a tornado ended up going through the town. I had previously not had much experience with tornadoes, so I was eating in a restaurant while this was occurring, and the wait staff was not paying much attention. The power was out in the restaurant and they still were serving meals, and the only caveat was they were saying that they could not accept credit cards and only cash. Later, I returned back to my hotel where the power was also out. Their solution for this was to get everyone into the lobby and offer free beer and wine. That went about as well as you would expect. Now, what this ended up bringing up was how none of the staff of either location were especially trained with what to do in the event of those types of events. The lobby of the hotel was not the most secure, considering the entire glass front, and definitely not the place that you wanted to be in the event of a tornado. Just further examples of where your safety is your priority. Political unrest is a very real concern in many parts of the world. It manifests in the form of riots, protests, strikes, and government instability. These are all important to note because of what they mean and what you can do to avoid them. The first of riots, protests, and strikes. If you see any, avoid them. Even if you agree with them politically, authorities may be coming in to dissipate the crowd, and you may be part of the crowd. You do not want to be part of an aggressive confrontation, regardless of where you are. Also, for government instability. This is important to note because this will be a loss of services. If you need police, they may not be there. Hospitals may be overrun. You may not be able to get a flight out. The embassies may be closed. These all put you at an extremely vulnerable position and mean that you need to avoid these scenarios and get out of them as soon as possible. If we were to look at sheer numbers impacted, disease takes out more travelers than any other event. Insects, such as mosquitoes carrying malaria, can be a very real risk depending on where you are in the world. We now see things like Zika virus spreading throughout the world as well. Vaccines are all important to get, and research where you're going to be going to and talk to your doctor. Even if it's just for a business trip or a short vacation, a vaccine can quite literally save your life. Consider what food and beverage that you're consuming. Contaminated food and water can make you very sick, quickly turning your new job or new vacation into a very unpleasant time. Now, lastly, is sexually transmitted infections. As awkward it is to talk about, these are very real risks throughout the world. Regardless of where you are, always be sure to be safe. Let's discuss food and water contamination and how to avoid it. The first being water. Contaminated water is a challenge in many parts of the world. Drinking water from the tap, drinking beverages with ice cubes made out of contaminated water, or food that was rinsed off in contaminated water can all make you sick. In some cases, it could be as little amount of water as it takes to brush your teeth to make you sick, potentially even while taking a shower. Because of this, it's important to only eat cooked foods, boiled foods, and foods that you peel yourself in order to contracting any pathogens. Lastly, drugged drinks. The unfortunate reality is that drug drinks do occur, and we do need to be aware of them. Whenever you are at a nightclub, a bar, or anywhere unfamiliar to you, do not accept drinks from strangers. When possible, watch the bartender pour it. This will go very far into ensuring that you are not a victim of a crime. Just following disease, transportation is the second largest risk to travelers globally. This is caused by things like road safety. In other countries, road conditions and driving habits may vary. Always be sure to wear a seatbelt and practice the safest driving habits that you possibly can. Think about taking a taxi with a local driver. When selecting a taxi, be sure they are an official taxi and not someone posing as one. Should you jump into a taxi, then use your GPS to follow along. We are fortunate now with modern technology and apps like Uber and Lyft where the GPS will follow along with us and will know if they go off course. If you don't have that option, then use your own GPS to let you know if there's something to be concerned about. Let's begin Lesson 6, Information for Leaders. For any people leaders, take responsibility to train your team on the workplace. This could apply to expats and business travelers just as much as it would apply to people that are local in your area. Train them on what to do if scenarios. This goes back to the security planning for the specific threats in your area. Where are the exits, the buildings, the secure areas? This will help them for navigating the building and campus, as well as knowing where to go to be safe. Next is who do we go to if scenarios. This would include who they could report suspicious activity to and who to go to if there's a problem. The less ambiguity in the workplace means a much more productive workforce. Last is run drills. As we discussed, running drills makes emergency response into a habit. It makes it muscle memory. They know exactly what to do because they have done it before. A great tip is to take a half day or even a full day to run through multiple scenarios and turn it into a team building exercise. See what they would plan for and what they would expect. This gives you good insight into the people on your team, as well as get them trained for any emergency situations that may arise. Provide area information to your immediate team and greater organization. You can have the local authorities and emergency responders come in and do a training on the important things to know and what to do if scenarios. You can do a new employee briefing, so everyone that's onboarding with your organization can receive the same information. This may be emergency numbers or locations to go to in the event of an emergency. Also, offer it in an electronic resource. This will be an internal intranet or database to provide this information to your team day or night. Now, a good example of the value add here is a time that we had an employee bring in an expat. She was used to her home country where police would drive around with their lights on all the time. Now, when a police car got behind her and was trying to pull her over, she didn't pull over because she was used to her home country standards. So you can imagine by the time the police officer finally got her to pull over, they were not very happy. And the confrontation was a lot more aggressive than either side would have liked. This all could have been avoided simply with a bit of education. A great resource that you can add to your team is establishing emergency response leads. Now, these will be individuals that you'll train in first aid, disaster response, and evacuation. You will want at least one per team, and they will act as the authority in the event of an emergency. If we think back to our fire drill example, people want social proof. So in the event of an actual emergency, we will want an individual to be able to say, yes, there is in fact an emergency, and here is where everyone needs to go immediately. It will encourage a more rapid response and more social cohesion while doing this act. One of the unique privileges of being a people leader in an organization is that you have your finger to the pulse of any of the people on your team. You can see what their emotional norms are and what stands out. You can see what their normal and consistent work is. These are all important things to monitor because they will tell you if there's something emotionally going on with that person that may make them a threat or show that they are a victim. Even beyond that, with expats, you'll see how well they're adjusting. Culture shock is a very real thing, and we want to be cognizant of that as people are adjusting. So if you are a people leader and you're noticing a difference in the person on your team, then report it up to HR or any other managers so you can make a strategy of how to address it. Let's begin the course project, making a safety plan. For the course project, we want to put together a number of safety plans. These safety plans will apply to our family, workplace, and travel. You can do one or multiple. Obviously, the more that you have, the better you'll react to an emergency situation. These plans will consist of what would you do if scenarios. The first to consider is what would you do in the event of a loss of communication. Think about how essential being able to pick up the phone and contact someone is. This could be dialing your spouse, your children, your family members. What about calling the local authorities in the event of a fire or a break-in or emergency? Think about what you would do in the event of political unrest. What if it was happening locally? What if it was happening while you're traveling? Think about what you would do in an active shooter situation, both in your workplace and while you're going about your business throughout the world. If you're in a restaurant, if you're in a shopping mall, if you're in a movie theater, These are all scenarios that are real world and have happened and unfortunately do happen. Next is, what would you do if there was a natural disaster? I want you to apply this to whatever natural disaster may be where you're living right now or where you're going to be relocating to or traveling to. It could be a volcano erupting or a hurricane approaching. This way, if it does occur, then you'll already have the plan in place. Lastly, is what would you do in the event of a robbery? And here's the scenario. You're traveling to a country that you've never been before. You just got off the plane and you're approaching your hotel. You have all of your luggage and personal belongings with you. A group of individuals approaches and takes everything that you have. Now what do you do? The correct answer is going to vary depending on where you are, but in planning for the worst, you will be prepared for the worst. This concludes the course. I wanted to thank you and provide our contact information should you have any further questions. Our email is support@vendiumglobal.com and our website is www.vendiumglobal.com. We appreciate you taking the time to improve your skills to practice safety in the workplace, traveling, and relocating. We hope to see you in our upcoming courses, and thank you again.